Warning, today's show is recorded from within inside a hot tub. Elements of psychological nudity may occur.
Andrew, how's it going?
It's going fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew, if you had all of the money you could possibly ever want, what would you spend your time doing?
Oh, man.
What would you spend your time doing?
Man, I would probably spend a lot of time with my wife. I do that.
Okay.
I would probably, I don't know. Never really thought about that. I would probably buy some more real estate, rental properties.
You're 20 years old. You have your first rental property.
That's true.
What kind of animal do you have?
I have a sugar glider.
Sugar glider.
You have a sugar glider.
Yep.
You have a rental house. You're married. You're 20.
True.
Things are good.
Andrew, could you pass me an ice cream cone?
What are you talking about?
Hey, no ice cream in the hot tub. We've talked about this. Now let me tell you about today's guest.
Okay.
On today's show, we have one of the most screwed up guests we've ever had on the show, okay? This guy, PRADY TEWARIE.
Yep.
He started his first business on the campus of Boston University, selling supplements. Then he exited that company and then got involved in another business, and he started buying some real estate, and he's doing well financially. And you know what this guy has decided to do with his free time?
Tell me about it.
Clubbing and hot tubbing?
No, he's decided to throw his time away by investing it with me right here on the Thrivetime Show. I mean, this guy is jacked up. I mean, what kind of a sick freak would be physically fit, would be financially fit, and would be able to do anything in the world that he wants to do, but would choose to take that time and to invest it to improve the lives of our listeners. This is the kind of sick, twisted freak that I want to have on our show each and every day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you PRADY TEWARIE.
Have you guys seen my ice cream cone? I know it's floating around here somewhere.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrivetime Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we have a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in the history of this show, we are interviewing, for the first time in the history of this show, somebody by the name of PRADY TEWARIE. PRADY, welcome on to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be on.
Hey, I know the listeners out there want to know, how do you spell your name? What's the history of your name? Just kind of introduce us to your name, because you're the first PRADY we've ever had on the show.
Yeah, so PRADY, and actually the full name is Pradyuman, which is actually Indian name, but I just go by PRADY just to shorten it a little bit. But it's actually an Indian name because my great-grandparents are actually from India.
Okay. Now, can you tell the listeners out there what you do now for a living? Because you're having a lot of success.
Yeah, so I'm involved in a couple of things. Number one, I'm a real estate developer, so I develop apartment buildings here in the Boston area. But I also am the owner of Azoth, which is a nootropic company, which is a dietary supplement company, and we are on a mission to help people become more productive. And we basically produce dietary supplements just to accomplish that. So kind of a 2 different things that I'm doing, but as I'll kind of get into, you can tie them all together, and they just one complements the other.
Well, let's go back to the very beginning of your career. Where did it all start out for you?
Well, it all started out for me, I think when I moved to the States right before college. I always wanted to. I wasn't really feeling my drive really in school and in middle school and high school, and the kind of the structure wasn't really for me. And you'll hear this story kind of cliched for a lot of people who end up starting their business. But one thing that I like to do is I like to listen and to solve problems. And I was always kind of driven with an entrepreneurial mindset. And I remember coming here to college, and I heard a couple of people talk about some issues that they were having with their health and fitness needs. And I was really into health and fitness at the time. I really enjoyed working out. and a couple of friends were saying, you know what, I need my protein and my supplements. I need it, but it takes me so long to get it online. This was before Amazon, and people didn't have a car to go to GNC, and a lot of people needed it right away. That's how kind of the supplements work. And I was like, you know what, this is a problem that I could potentially help solve. And long story short, I ended up calling a distributor, and I told them that I wanted to buy supplements in bulk. And they asked me, well, who are you? Are you like a reseller? Are you a store? And I was like, yeah, I'm a reseller. I kind of made up this story. But I told them, I want to buy all this inventory, but I don't, I want to pay net 30, which means you get the product and you pay 30 days later.
Got it.
And they were like, okay, fine, we'll do it. So a few days later, this was literally like just a week after I heard people talk about this problem. And so I got all this inventory, these products that I knew a lot of people were using in my school. And I filled up my dorm room with all this inventory of products, and kind of sleeping on the floor. The protein and everything was pretty much everywhere in the dorm room. And I put up a really, what I think is a crappy website at the time, because I didn't really know much about coding. And I started offering to people on campus that, instead of a 2-day, 3-day, 4-day delivery, I was going to offer 20-minute delivery. So people on campus wanted whatever they wanted, their protein, their pre-workout, whatever kind of supplement they wanted, I would deliver it in 20 minutes. Basically had a bike on campus, and I would deliver it to people across campus.
Now, wait a minute now. So you did a net 30. I want to make sure I get this. You did a net 30 purchase term, which, by the way, for the Thrivers out there who aren't familiar with this is very common to do that. How much product did you have to sell in order to pay that first bill?
All of it. So it was kind of risky, because when I started off, I didn't really have much capital, just a college student, and I felt that there was a need, and I felt when I was looking at people's pain points, I knew that potentially, it was kind of a guess that they would pay a premium for quick delivery. And obviously this was before Amazon Prime was really a thing, and I felt this is such a problem. I kept hearing over and over again, man, I'm out of protein, I'm out of pre-workout. And people at college would pool together, like a carpool, to go to GNC and buy it all in stock and like give it to people at school. And I was like, man, there must be a better way. So that's kind of what I did. So I had a bike, me and my friend, and we would deliver it to people on campus at the dorm room. And basically, to answer your question, how why I'm telling this story is because this ended up being a big success. So as I started going through college, we had more people who were riding the bikes for us, and that was my first business success. I ended up selling the stake in that company after a while. And that it's all about the stories that you can tell. One, like with business, I always say, the cool thing about business and in life is you only have to really be right once. So you can have all these failures, but if you're right once, that becomes the story. And that became my story on campus. And that kind of started spreading, where people started to ask me help for business. I started giving, panels at school at a really young age in their entrepreneurship center. And, that kind of is like how my story in entrepreneurship and business really started.
What was the name of the school that you attended, and what was the name of the business that you started?
Yeah, so basically, I went to Boston University, and at the time, the business was called Campus Elite, and we basically spin it off, and the company took a different name, and there was different investors that ended up buying it out. But I went to Boston University, and that was kind of where it all started. And of course, Boston University being a really big school, a really big international crowd. Kind of health and fitness was really big. The gym audience size was huge, and I kind of tapped into me being into health and fitness and knowing all the people that are involved, going into the gym. The long story here really is that it's just competency, because people ask, well, what was the exit like? Like, what were the numbers like? And it wasn't anything massive. It doesn't have to be this massive number, but just showing competency that you're able to start a business, scale it, and have some success and deliver on your promises. Just a small thing like that can actually start kind of the whole story, and it can start a wave of different things that come into your life that could, bring success down the line. So, I know a lot of people, when they get into entrepreneurship and business, they're saying, what's the breakthrough idea? What's the next, $10 million idea or $100 million idea? And I was like, man, in the beginning, when you start off, just do one thing, do it well, execute, delivering your promises, and, and say what you're going to do. And that alone, that competency will take you a long way.
Now, what was your next venture that you did? After you had some success here with this first one, what was the next venture?
Yeah, so there were all kinds of things that came into play. So these were, and the reason why I tell the story, because it was a cascade of things. So I started getting involved with people who had ideas on campus, and being in Boston is really great because Boston is a very entrepreneurial town, of course, with all the universities around here,
Yeah.
and people started coming to me with their ideas. So these were all types of things. These were, someone had a parent that had a tanning salon, someone had a barbershop that I got involved with. Someone else wanted to get into health and fitness and start a supplement line. Then it was a distribution company. And so now, the portfolio was kind of wide, and a lot of them were hit or misses, but I found out a couple of principles that ended up working for a lot of these businesses. And the cool thing was that after that first success, I didn't have to come up with all the ideas. People would bring ideas to me to see, to vet them out, see what I thought. And then I was able to come into play and help them really scale it. And you'd notice that the problems that a lot of these businesses had weren't like, massive problems. There were a small thing that weren't doing. I remember going to a couple of small businesses and asking, hey, you have an email list? And they were like, yes. And I was like, how many people are on the email list? And they were like, 3,000-4,000. We've had this business for, almost a decade. And I was like, well, do you ever email the people? And they were like, no. And I was like, why not? They're like, well, we just don't know how to use any, we don't email people. So just going in there, putting in email automation, stuff like that can make a massive difference. And of course, it matters what time period. Obviously, this is 2009, 10, 11, when kind of the internet was already booming, but kind of the automation, a lot of the tools were still being underutilized. But that was really it. So there isn't like a massive breakthrough. It's just being competent, and then ideas flowing towards you from competence.
And when did you, or how did you transition from, supplements, then ultimately into real estate investment? When did that happen?
Yeah, so that also happened while I was in college. So basically what happened is I had, after I'd sold, my goal always was, I guess in a nutshell, was to come into a business, automate it, systematize it, and then sell it. A lot of people have this concept where, your business is your baby and they're emotionally tied to it. I get it, but at the same time for me, it was like, this is an asset. And what I was tied to was the culture. What I was tied to was the values, but I wasn't really tied to the process. And I knew when time is to let go, then you let go as an asset. So I had started selling a few of these businesses, and I was sitting on a little bit of liquid. And I was like, well, you know what? I wanted to use some of this, there's this liquid that I had and didn't want to just keep it in the bank, and I wanted to do something else. So I remember my sister actually went to law school in upstate New York, and I remember dropping her to law school for her first orientation week. And I remember, going to upstate New York, and she had a real hard time finding a place to stay, like to rent. And, we're going to all these places, with her, and the rent was sky high, but the places that she was seeing, like with the rent being so high, were really dumps. Like they were not neatly kept. I don't think the landlord had been there. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, because the rent keeps rising, but the landlords are not putting any effort in this. And I was like, well, real estate might be something that, that might be something more passive, and it felt in line with automation and systematizing. So I was like, well, maybe I'll try something like this. Maybe I'll try to put in some of my money in real estate. And that's exactly what I did. I took some of the liquid I had and I put it into buy and hold properties, which, basically investing in condos and in places where, basically in college town. So I had bought a condo at a college town there where my sister went to school. And, I was like, well, how do I keep increasing rents? Of course, because people were increasing rents, the same way. They were adding maybe a little bit of improvement and just waiting for market to go up. But I was like, well, this is kind of slow. What have I learned from all these businesses that I've done in the past? I learned to listen to customers and tailor your product to what the customer really wants. And I felt that, with college students, they don't really care about granite top, like kitchen counters, and, all this like fancy stuff that maybe some of the landlords were putting in, which costs a lot of capital. So basically what I started doing, I was like, what a lot of college students care about, because I was one at the time, I was like, we care about technology, we want automation. So I went to the Apple store and I bought bulk iPads and some of the really like initial stages, what they had with home automation, which was like really bare minimum. And I started installing it in some of these rentals that I had bought, and people loved it. So when college students looked at my units, it was the same quality as all the other units, but what was different is that they got an iPad that could open up the curtains, that could see how much food was in the fridge and all this cool stuff. And people were willing to pay more rent monthly, just because there was home automation in it. And that ended up being another success because I was able to increase rents, cash out refi from my mortgage, and then put a down payment on the next and the next and the next. And that way I started to own a lot of buy and holds by the time I graduated college. But it was just that simple process. Started with one, found out a way to succeed, and then just copy that model over and over again.
No, you are a successful guy. You said did you say you're 28 years old?
Yes, I'm 28.
Okay. Are you do you have superpowers, or what time do you wake up every day, my friend? How do you organize your day?
Yeah, so I do have a tendency to I wake up pretty early. I think I usually wake up around 4:30. I don't really live on a lot of sleep, which is definitely true, but it's not and I don't encourage that because people ask me what my sleep schedule is like, and they think they have to copy it. It's just because when I was younger, I just genetically didn't really need a whole lot of sleep.
Are you sleeping 6 hours a day? I mean, what time are you going to
probably
bed?
A little bit less. Yeah, I think on mostly I average like 4 or 5. Sometimes sometimes more, sometimes less.
Walk us through a typical day. What time are you wake up at 4, and then what do you do next?
Yeah, so the first thing I do when I wake up, I do not check any emails or text message, nothing. I don't respond to anything. I usually wake up before, I try to wake up, if it's super early, usually it's 4:30. And then the first thing I do is I go to the gym and I spend time on myself, and that's about an hour and a half. Then I get ready for the day, and then I start going. The first thing I do is I open up all my project sites. So I'm the first one. So right now I'm in real estate development, which means we build these apartment complexes. I'm always the first one there. So before any worker gets in, I'm the one that's always there, make sure everything's open. So I go through all my project sites, open them all up. It takes me until 9 or 10, and then I start my workday with my supplement company, talking to whether it's manufacturers or distributors and going through the whole process. But that, and after a while, I think after 11 or 12, the day just rolls through. But I spend the bulk of my time right now, after it's doing some of the admin related tasks, is just networking and meeting new people. That's the one thing I've been starting doing. Of course, it's something that's a popular model, but I've really copied that. Is for now it's 7 days a week. I don't like to eat alone except for breakfast because that's the first meal of the day, but all my other meals I eat with someone else. And the reason why I do that is because I found out that in business, being good and talented is great, but having a greater net, you can always outwork out network sometimes a little bit of talent and sometimes some skills. And when people see you and know you, that has been a catalyst for massive growth for me. So I tend to spend a lot of time meeting other people. That's probably where a bulk of my time goes now.
I feel like your rigor, your routine, and your results are all kind of tied together. You appear to be a very disciplined guy. Am I wrong? Are you a guy that I'm looking at you. You appear to be in shape. What's your secret to? Because there's got to be some listener out there that's struggling with the routine, the rigor, being disciplined. What would be your advice for a listener out there that's struggling to stay focused?
Yeah, I think the best advice is, and this is something I've mentioned quite a bit throughout this interview too, is to just have a small win. So, I'm a lot into health and fitness, and one of the things, and I study, the way the brain works. And if you think about habits, the way they're formed, it takes a while. It takes 60 to 90, sometimes even longer days. But what actually shapes our habits is dopamine and serotonin. People know about dopamine and they think about it's like the chemical that when you're happy and excited and pleasure. But actually where dopamine really plays a role is also the habits and the actions that we take. So when you're procrastinating, when you're not doing something, is because dopamine isn't released by that action. And one thing we've noted is that dopamine works on a cascade effect. So this is how it works. If you have a task and you accomplish it, then you release a little bit of dopamine, and then that dopamine carries on to what you do the next in the day. So where am I going with this is like starting something small. So set a goal, if you're someone who's really struggles with, hey, I want to go to the gym and really lose weight, and just start with something small. Say, for the next week, I'm going to make my bed every day. So you make your bed, and then what I am a big proponent of is having on a whiteboard or on a paper, put in make my bed and put a box next to it, make your bed and put a check mark next to it. So at 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whenever you wake up, 7 o'clock, you wake up having accomplished a task. So you have a small win and you start your day with a win, even if it's something small, just making your bed, and then do that for a week. And then the next week, you add another small thing like, hey, I cleaned up my dishes. So basically by the time I get to work or I start really my day, I've already had so many wins that it just flows through to everything else. So I don't recommend starting with like massive action and changing your whole life overnight. It really is a small thing, and nothing is too small. It can be something like cleaning your dishes, making your bed, like I just said, and really start with that. And I really think if you follow through with that, that has a cascade effect.
If the listeners out there who are going, okay, I want to know what you're up to now. I mean, Prady, what kind of projects are you working on now? Like, what do you see yourself doing over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I'm really involved with. One of them is my supplement company. I talk about that, Azoth. And so I started a supplement company back in law school about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Really about a year ago, I really went all in. And the goal really is to get people more productive. And what we're doing right now is I'm trying to impact more people to change their lives by doing small things like that. And so right now we have a certain amount of people that are, part of what we call our tribe, which is the people that are engaged and using our products, but also doing more. We're trying to find ways to stimulate them and to get them more productive. But the goal is, for me, is to get 1,000 people. It's a small, not a crazy number, just 1,000 people that are part of the program, but also and are able to find a little bit more productivity in their day. And again, this could be 10 minutes, this could be 6 minutes, 7 minutes of time that they didn't have before. So even by coming on this podcast, that's a goal of mine, because I can share this message with someone that they don't have to. Because you don't have to be inundated, and they don't have to get, because when you start off, like when I started off with a business, my goal wasn't like, oh man, I want to make, $10 million business right away. The goal was like, hey man, how can I deliver a product instead of like 25 minutes? I want to deliver in 23. That's my only goal I have for the whole month. Or it could be the only goal you have for the whole year, but right. That's it. But those small little goals, they end up with compounded interest becoming larger. So what's my goal right now? It's to get 1,000 people more productive, and just adding 5 or 6 more minutes to their day. And that's really the goal. And of course, with real estate, is to really, scale and do the different type of projects, but also have more of a brand in the projects that I build. And so people, when they come into the homes that I build, they know that I've built it and adds more value to their life through home automations, the technology that I'm installing in there.
Well, for the listeners out there, they know I love to ask our guests, but what are a couple books that you would recommend to all of our listeners out there? You come across as a very well-read guy. You've obviously had a lot of success. What is maybe one book or a couple of books that you would recommend to all of our listeners? Yeah, so yes, I do. I'm a pretty voracious reader, but there's a couple of books that I think have made a big change. One of them that I've really enjoyed is a book a lot of people have heard of, is by Ray Dalio, of course, a very prominent investor, and he wrote a book called Principles. A lot of people have read it, and it's a bestseller. But that book applies in so many different ways in life, and it talks about how to extract principles from daily things that we're doing and that we're seeing. And if you can extract those principles, you can copy it. The goal being that, is success really a formula, or is it a series of random things that we do? And I think that if you look at it, you can look at it from a mathematical standpoint or scientific standpoint, but once you've hit your stride a little bit, you can take those principles and apply it somewhere else. So I'm talking about health and fitness, and being a competitive bodybuilder has nothing to do with real estate, but are there principles that I learned in bodybuilding that I can apply to real estate development, that I can apply to starting a supplement company, that I can apply to becoming, a better, employer or employee? And if you can do that, then all of a sudden you're a productivity animal, I call it, because you're always working on different projects at the same time. Because while you're working on project X, the principles you use from project X, you can apply to project Y. So you're always working on different projects simultaneously. That book has been a big big force in my life that's changed the way to think. And then the other book, which is a business book, but again, and I named the second, which is a book called not super popular, but it's a book called Built to Sell, which is creating a business that can thrive without you. And the concept of the book is, how do you systematize and you automate things in your business so that your business can basically survive without you. And now, why is this book important, and why I'm mentioning this podcast? Because again, this goes to the first thing I just said. If you can find a way to systematize tasks, you can focus on strategy. This is one of the big things I've noticed when I speak to a lot of people. They're, man, like, I'm working 100+ hours. I'm not going on vacation. I'm doing all this stuff, right.
But man, I'm stuck. why am I stuck? And I look at the stuff that they're doing in their day. I'm like, man, all you've been doing is just tasks. You're a great taskmaster, but the real actions that are going to get you to the next level, those are strategy-based things. And you need to have time to think about that strategy. But if all you're doing in a day is just a series of tasks, you don't have time to do that. So how can we outsource those tasks and automate those and systematize those so that we can focus our time to focus on strategy? And that's a big thing.
Prady, for anybody out there that wants to learn more about you and wants to, do a deep dive into what you're building there at Azoth, or how do they get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to find out more about you?
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with me, I'm usually pretty active on Instagram, so people can look me up on Instagram, Prady TEWARIE, PRADY. TEWARIE. That's not my handle, but if you look that up, you can find me. I'm just putting up my domain, pradytewarie.com. It'll be ready by the time this comes out, and I'll have all my podcasts and my blogs. But if people want to read my blog, they can go on getazoth.com, getazoth.com. And I have a blog that I write, and I write about all this stuff, about productivity, about business, about life, and totally free newsletter. I write twice a week, put out a lot of content, and there's no sales pitch or anything like that. It's just purely content that I write. I write about 2,000-3,000 word newsletters, really long and dense. It's almost like a whole chapter from a book, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this. And it's also, I think, I synthesize the conversations I have at all those meetings when I meet with people every day. What did I learn? And I put that in a newsletter for people to apply in their own life.
Prady, I appreciate you, man, for hopping on the show, and I want to ask you one final 60-second question here. If you could tell all the listeners, if you could give all the listeners just one piece of advice that has allowed you to start your first college-based business, your supplement company, then allowed you to move into the next business, and then get involved in real estate, what's that one piece of advice you would give all of the listeners out there that are struggling to develop that life momentum that you seem to have created?
The one piece of advice that I would give is do not get intimidated by the fact that you're small. And that's very important, because you will start somewhere and you'll look at competitors and the giants and you're like, man, I can't do what those competitors are doing. They're way too big. And so you'll start playing their game. This is incorrect, and this is also correct, and I'll explain. The truth is that you cannot do what the big guys are doing. They're just too big for you. But what's also true is they can't do what you can do. So revel in the fact that you are small, because when you're small, you can do a lot of innovative stuff that actually can cut through the clutter. You can innovate faster. In my experience, what I would do when I started my supplement company, I would write handwritten notes to people. Big companies can't do that. I was thinking about ways to, put in home automation, and I opened up all my project sites in the beginning. I talked to all my tenants. So these are things that big companies can do because they're so large, but that you can do, and that matters to your customer. So, and that is your game. So find out what your game is and dominate that. Don't play other people's game, because you're bound to lose. But where you're going to win is you find out what your strength is and really tap into that. And that's a huge thing. Like, don't revel in the fact that you're small, and take advantage of that.
Prady, I appreciate your time so much, my friend. I appreciate you for being on the show, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thank you so much. And it was really a pleasure to be on, and thank you so much for providing the platform, not only for myself, but for other people who are there to speak, and also to listen to this all this actionable advice, man. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Andrew, we like to end each and every show with a boom, but before we do that, I want to insert an audio testimonial from a great thriver out there who recently attended one of our in-person workshops.
Okay.
And he has been to Tony Robbins. He's been to other huge conferences.
Big ones.
And he was willing to hop on the show and share with us what he learned and how the conference impacted him. And he's built a multi-million-dollar company. Mm-hmm. His name is Darren. And he's from Missouri, I believe. Okay. And he's already built a multi-million-dollar company. He sold it a couple years ago. And he said he's spent over $100,000, if I'm correct, on attending other workshops in the past. And he was willing to hop on the show with us to share with us what he learned. And that way, if you're out there today thinking about attending one of the ThriveTimeShow.com workshops, you can hear from somebody who's actually attended, and you can get their objective feedback about what they learned. So again, if you've ever thought about attending the Thrivetime Show in-person workshops, I would encourage you to check them out today at thrivetimeshow.com. or I'd encourage you to go on YouTube and look for Thrivetime Show conference reviews, or you can find the reviews on iTunes, or you can find the reviews from people who've left us reviews on our Google map by typing in Thrivetime Show and the word Jenks, Jenks.
Darren, is this the amazing Darren?
This is the one and only.
One and only Darren. Hey, man, this is Eric Chupp from over at the Thrivetime Show.
Hey, you're bothering me. I'm reading Jackassery while I'm getting a tire change. Honest to God, I've got a highlighter. A green highlighter for quotes and a pink highlighter for content. I'm literally reading Jackassery as I'm waiting for my tire to get changed.
Good. Okay, here we go. Question 1 here. So what is your name and where are you from?
My name's Darren Ross. I'm from Kearney, Missouri, home of Jesse James.
Home of Jesse James. I did not know that. You educated me already. How did you originally hear about the Thrivetime Show workshop?
I've been listening to all his podcasts like crazy and going,
Awesome.
That dude's pretty funny.
It's very funny. It's very funny. Well, if you've heard some goober on there they call Chupp, that's me. That's my last name. And so you'll probably hear me chiming in with some stuff pretty soon. But yeah, CHUPP, that's me. So
I listen to my podcast on my iPhone.
yes.
And for some reason on iTunes, I don't know, it stops with season 5, but I guess you can get them all online. Is that correct?
That's the way. Yeah, they take him off after a certain number, and he records so much content that it only goes back that far. But they're all posted on the website that you can get to for free as well.
I did not know that iTunes took them off.
Yeah, it only loads up so many of them, and then so that's why we make sure and host them on the website as well, so that you got access to all of them.
Yeah, I told him the other day. I spent some time with Clay Friday, Saturday morning, I guess, beforehand.
Oh, cool.
I got there about 6:30, and I was just telling him. I said, we sold our company. I started a company in my dorm room selling apparel, custom apparel, and promotional products to the fraternity and sorority market, and we ran that business for like almost 31 years, and I sold it at the end of 17, and I've been literally I can't even tell you how many seminars, conferences, coaching programs, courses, masterminds. I probably spent 180 to 220 grand over the years. And I told my wife and even my mom, I said, this is the best 2-day one. This is the best conference I've ever been to, even though it was only 2 days and driving distance and $37. I'm like, right. So I bought everything. I bought every book he had except the one. I think there was one I didn't buy, but
that's great.
Yeah, it's so practical. It's just all of them want to sell you the next seminar and the next coaching program, and
well, I tell you,
didn't feel like.
Clay, he built this program for business owners by business owners, kind of like FUBU, right? For us, by us.
Yeah.
Because he was the exact same place you were, right? He went to all these seminars and experienced all the upsells and all this crap, and he's like, why can't somebody just not tell me what to do? I just want somebody to tell me what to do. So I'm glad to hear that.
I know, man. And, it's funny because I have literally spent, I've known for the last several years I want to get into some sort of mentoring and training or coaching entrepreneurs because I just knew that they're missing something. Yeah. And I was having a gal build me a website, a WordPress website back in February. And she had sent me 2 or 3 different sites to look at just for ideas and content because I wanted to kind of have the core of it on how to grow your business while keeping faith and family first. So that was kind of my niche. And she sent me 3 or 4 websites, and your all's was one of them. And I'm like, who is this? I've never even heard of Clay Clark. I've never even heard of Thrive.
Wow.
And I looked at it. I'm like, this is the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen. So I signed up for the conference within just a matter of a few days. And then, of course, I started listening to his website, started listening to all his podcasts in March. But I'm like, this is spot on. It's no fluff and no crap. It's just straight to the point.
That is awesome. Well,
and I've been I jumped on the podcast probably back in March of 2019, and I've probably listened to 75 of them since then and listened to about 2 a day.
That's awesome. That's where all the meat is, right on the bone right there, right? The podcast has so much information on it.
That's true.
Well, what kind of business do you guys have, and what were you looking to learn at the workshop?
Well, actually, I sold our company. I started a company in my dorm room in 1987. We grew it and built it over about almost 31 years. We did custom apparel and promotional items. We manufacture those items for different organizations and associations, college fraternities and sororities. So I sold that business at the end of 17. So actually, I'm kind of in limbo right now trying to figure out my next move.
But you are probably a kindred spirit with Clay on the college entrepreneurship.
Very much so. I started in my dorm room. I had a phone booth literally right next to my dorm. That's where I conducted all my business on a payphone for the first several months.
That's amazing. Well, how would you describe the atmosphere of Clay's office and team?
You know what? My wife, I'm going to tell you this. My wife's not a conference goer, but she came with me. And I literally had to beg her. It was our anniversary. June 7th was our anniversary. I literally had to beg her
to our conference on your anniversary.
On my 22nd wedding anniversary.
You
I said,
wild
you
man.
got to come. We were at the Holiday Inn Express like 5 minutes away. I said, you got to come. She's like, I'm not coming. I'm like, you got to come. I was texting her. So I finally got her to come. I said, just come over lunch. I said, you can even sit here. So she came, and literally she had tears in her eyes because she was crying so hard at some of the stuff Clay was doing. But I've always been a person that I love cool company Christian culture. That's my deal. I love companies that have cool company Christian. So I have a phone full of pictures and videos of just the office atmosphere alone, because that was one of the coolest things about the whole deal, is just the office atmosphere.
It's very intentional, right? Like you can tell some thought went into everything, and there's stuff everywhere, right?
Stuff everywhere, quotes all over the place, frames all over the place, in the bathrooms. I mean, I've never seen anything like. And I've been to a lot of cool companies. I had the inside private tour of Dave Ramsey's organization several years ago, and I've been to a lot of places over my lifetime and businesses, and it's probably the coolest one I've been to.
Well, that is great to hear. It wasn't on accident, and so we really tried to build that inviting and kind of high energy, high pace, really cool, eclectic environment, because we know like we got to keep everybody on their toes to learn, and we want to laugh and learn. So I love hearing that from you. I was
laughing.
That's good. How would you describe Clay's delivery and presentation style?
Off the charts. I mean, just kind of basically leaving you wanting more and more all the time. I mean, I had just pages and pages of notes, and there was never a dull or boring moment, and it was all just nuts and bolts, man. There was no fluff. It was just all straight to the point that any business owner can listen, learn, and apply.
What is one of the most valuable things that you did learn while you were at this workshop this past weekend?
Just the importance of the search engine and website optimization.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't really. I mean, we've fiddled around with websites over the past, but never really got much, if any, business from them. It was just one of those deals where we felt like it was a necessary evil, and we always looked at it as a necessary evil. But now that I have dug into your all site and look how well it's put together, and I've even checked out some of the sites of people that you had at the conference or that I met at the conference, and it is true, they all are on the definitely first page of Google, and usually within the first one or two people after the paid ads.
Oh yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I never heard about, I'd heard of, obviously I heard of Google reviews and video reviews, but I never knew the importance of them, and I never had heard the term canonical compliance and all that. So
very good. Canonical compliance, that's getting into the technicalities right there, isn't it?
But it's just, and I spent some time with your SEO guy, Ben, and a couple other folks, and they just kind of broke a few things down. I'm like, it really is important.
And the cool thing is, it's every other SEO company I've ever talked to or I've heard from or of, they all like put this cloud around it, and it's this mystic type of thing, and like Clay is breaking it down to it. No, you do this, this, and this, and you can control these things, and you'll be topping Google before you know it.
Well, I'm going to just tell you this. When I was in business several years ago, we had hired a company back in the early 2000s, right when the internet was coming on strong, and we had hired a company to do a really killer website for us. And, of course, I had a consultant on staff, and the consultant, I was paying them, and they said, you need to have this cool website built. So we spent like $85,000, and it never worked. And at the same time, the consulting company said, oh, by the way, you need to have this really cool ERP system, which takes care of everything, accounting, order entry. So we had an ERP system being built, a website being built. Neither one of them worked worth a darn. So we walked away with about $170,000 less in our pocket. And to be honest with you, straight up front, I've always had a really bad taste in my mouth about technical and web people.
Yeah.
So we built our business over the first 10 or 15 years on catalog direct mail. So I was like, I don't need web. I don't need the internet. I'm going to keep going internet or keep going direct mail. But I just got to put that behind me and listen, learn from the lessons and move on.
There you go. You check the fruit on the tree first, right? That's
right.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you too. How many conferences have you been to, and how much did those cost you? And how did they?
You know what?
In the past,
I've got a spreadsheet. I'm not at my office right now.
Okay.
I've got it right on the front page of my Mac, on the desktop of my Mac. I have courses I've purchased, and courses and/or conferences. And do you want just conferences only, or?
Oh, everything.
Oh my gosh, probably if you were to add up courses, conferences, coaching, and masterminds, I would say, excluding travel, probably 200,000, and that's probably 75 of them.
That's a pretty penny right there, huh?
That's a lot, yeah. And I wish I had that back. And I just heard about Clay about 25 years ago, but then he would only been like 13,
Yeah, or maybe 8. I don't even know. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, and I appreciate you saying that. My last question for you here is, why, in your mind, does everybody need to attend at least one Thrivetime Show workshop?
Because what they're currently exposed to or what they've been learning is probably not the right information and the right content or the right way to go about it. And if they were to attend a Thrivetime workshop, I think they would just be blown away at the simplicity and the how easy it is to break it all down and implement it. And then the big thing is to have someone like your all's team, for what you all charge per month is a bargain. And I even asked people, I said, does it really include this, and this? They're like, oh yeah, they do everything for us.
Yeah.
So
design,
I think that's
videography, photography, you name it.
Yeah, I mean, what you all are charging a month for some of this stuff, I mean, that, you could spend that on a 5 or 6 minute video.
Yeah, easily.
If you hired a videographer. So, I don't know. I told my wife the other day, or my mom too, I said, I'm going back. I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to come back down there. I told my wife also, I said, I just want to start a business so I can have these guys help me implement everything. Well, I've never had anybody. Huh?
I was going to say, that's the best endorsement we could get right there, I think. That's
Yeah, it was so cool. The wow factor was there that I was like, I want to get a new business started. And and Clay talked to me when we talked before that conference on Saturday. He said, hey, have you ever thought about franchising? He said it might be a good option. And I'm like, I never really gave it a thought because I always ran my own show. And
right.
But the systems are all built and right there in place for you. So I don't know. I'm kind of kicking that around too, but.
Well, that might be a good move for you, my friend. So
it could be.
All right, I'm gonna cut the jackassery out now. We'll let you get back to doing your diligent reading that you're doing there. But Dan, I just wanted to say thank you first and foremost for coming to the conference and being a diligent doer, and really, really appreciate the time that you took to talk to me about this and kind of give us an overview of what you thought about the workshop.
Well, I'll plan on being back to another one. It'll probably be August or October.
Oh, that's great, man. Well, hey, since Clay's going to turn this into a show, I'm going to count backwards from 3. We're going to do a 3, 2, 1, boom, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom!
Wow!
So you're now a podcast celebrity.
I was just listening this morning. Does he really do 9 a week?
Uh-huh. Yeah, when we first started, I probably did, I was going over there 6 days a week with him. He was recording from his basement. He had a studio set up over there. And we would record Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights, Fridays at like 2 or something, and then Saturday and Sunday mornings at 5 or 6 o'clock. And, man, me and him did that for 10 months, 9 months.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, we were putting out an insane amount of content. He's kind of scaled back a little bit, but he records 5 days a week and anywhere from 8 to 12 episodes every single week.
Every single week or every single day?
Every single week.
Oh. That's just. I said I was listening to one this morning. He said he was recording at the office because his home studio got flooded out.
Yep, 4 feet of water in his basement flooded our entire radio studio down there.
Oh, Billy.
That's horrible.
It was awful. And then the very next day, the river was coming up so high here from the Keystone Dam overflow that we had to evacuate the entire building like 2 days after that because they thought our building was going to flood too. And so he was like, we literally pulled everything that was in this office. We pulled it out because we were like, we can't have the house and the office flooding at the same time. We can't have that. So.
And this was going to be a question I was going to write on the board when I come to the next conference, but how come he doesn't do like most online marketers where when you go to your website, an opt-in box pops up and then he keeps dripping you content and information every week? How come he doesn't do something like that?
He has at this point, number one is to remember that him and Z built this as not the way to feed their family. This is like their passion project. So therefore, we are extremely selective about who we take on as a client and, to be honest with you, who we allow to come to the conference. We turn down a lot of people for the conference every 2 months, and we turn down
Do you really?
Yeah, because we're a business and we have to operate with margins and profit and all that stuff, but we like to keep a 160 client roster. And so Clay's very guarded about who he lets inside what he calls a circle, or the dojo of mojo, the garden of Zen up here, And so we don't necessarily want to be out in everybody's face with pop-ups and drip campaigns and all that stuff. We're very selective about who we work with because he has decided to design it that way. And we're not trying to mass produce and get 4,000 clients, right? We're trying to stick in our 160 client roster, but he doesn't want to get any bigger than that. So we don't really do all these other marketing methods that we would teach clients. But that is the same stuff that he did with the wedding photography company or the DJ company or the wedding show and all the other things that he's been, Elephant in the Room and all the other businesses.
So he uses more drip campaigns on those kind of things than this.
Yeah, and one of the we're not too huge on the automated stuff. It's just kind of like pick your 3 or 4 marketing legs that are working, and then typically that's enough. The main problem is that team members aren't following up with the kind of like assertive attitude that they need to be following up, like the urgency of actual business. So that's typically what we find is that a lot of companies are getting leads, they're just not getting a hold of those leads, and it's all about calling them fast and calling them often.
Well, yeah, I mean, your people, I've had just 2 or 3 questions over the last 4 or 5 months on just whether it's conference questions or whatever. And heck, man, I always had either a phone call or an email. It was like most people have a contact us form or something. And half the time you never even hear from anybody.
Never heard from you guys in 7 years. Is anybody there? Hello, is this thing on?
Yeah. And the conference wasn't real formal. I mean, it wasn't like you had to stand in line. They had to do a cavity search to make sure you're the right person that signed up. And I walk in, and what's her name? Not Amanda. Abby. She's like, "Oh, let me find your seat." And I'm like, it's just a different experience than most.
That's awesome. That's what we're trying to create. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it is. No, but I plan on coming back. It'll probably be October, but
okay.
Hopefully by then I'll have something lined up.
Sounds awesome, man. That's good. Well, I'll let you get back to reading your book. If you need anything else, you reach out to us. But enjoy those podcasts, and we can't wait to see you again, my friend.
And now, without any further ado, we like to end each and every show with a boom, which stands for big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. Andrew, are you psychologically ready to bring the boom?
So psychologically ready.
Have you recovered psychologically since recording our first and probably only show from the inside of a hot tub?
Not yet, but
okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom!